These two teenagers smiled in court.
They're the teens accused of intentionally mowing down a retired man out for a bike ride, recording the killing and laughing as they sped away. Now there's an uproar over their behavior in court yesterday. 18-year-old Jesus Ayala and 16-year-old Jzamir were seen laughing during a hearing in Las Vegas.
On August 14, 2023, a 64-year-old man was riding his bicycle in a quiet Las Vegas neighborhood. He never saw them coming. A stolen car, two teenagers inside, one driving, one filming. They aimed directly at him, accelerated, and ran him down from behind. He flew over the hood and slammed into the pavement. And as he lay dying on the side of the road, they sped away screaming with excitement. But here's what makes this case different from any other hit and run. They recorded the whole thing, but what these teenagers didn't know was who they had just killed. He wasn't just a cyclist. He wasn't just a retired grandfather. For 35 years, this man wore a badge. He was the chief of police. If you're into true crime cases that leave you with more questions than answers, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. So I know where this story's being heard. But this murder, wasn't their first attack that morning. Before they killed him, they had already run down another victim.
Also hit this 72-year-old cyclist that morning. He survived.
A 72-year-old man left bleeding in the street, and before that, they rammed into another car. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a joyride gone wrong. This was a crime spree, and Andreas Probst was their final target. What police discovered on the killer's phone revealed something even more disturbing. Andreas Probst spent 35 years protecting his community. He rose through the ranks to become chief of the Bell, California Police Department. He retired in 2009, moved to Las Vegas with his wife, Crystal, and took a remote job in global security. After decades of service, he finally had peace. His daughter Taylor said being around him was like standing next to a ray of sunshine, always laughing, always smiling, always welcoming strangers into his home like family. His favorite saying was, "I'm living the dream. It's another day of paradise." He and Crystal were approaching their 35th wedding anniversary. Their son Michael had just visited for dinner the week before. Their daughter Taylor was planning her wedding and dreaming of her father walking her down the aisle every morning. Andreas climbed onto his bicycle and rode through his quiet neighborhood. The same route, the same time, just 3 miles from home. He had done it hundreds of times without incident. But on August 14th, 2023, just 5 houses away, 2 teenagers had already stolen their first car, and they were looking for someone to hit. August 14th, 2023. A Las Vegas apartment complex sits quiet in the darkness. That's when Jesus Ayala and Jzamir spotted their target, a 2016 Hyundai Elantra parked in the lot. They didn't have a key. They didn't need one. These two knew about the TikTok method, also called the Kia Boys technique, a viral trend that taught teenagers how to steal certain Hyundai and Kia vehicles using nothing but a USB cable and a screwdriver. Within seconds, the steering column was cracked open, the ignition was bypassed, and the car was theirs. Ayala took the wheel. Keys sat in the passenger seat, phone already recording. They weren't stealing the car to sell it. They were stealing it to hunt. By 5:30 a.m., they found their first victim, a 72-year-old man riding his bicycle near Fort Apache in Washburn. He was in the bike lane, minding his own business. They didn't slow down. They swerved directly into him, sent him crashing to the pavement, then sped away laughing. He survived, but barely. Minutes later, they switched seats, now heading eastbound on Tenaya. A white Toyota Corolla crossed their path. They rammed it deliberately. The driver was shaken, but alive. 2 victims down, 2 attacks caught on video, and they still weren't satisfied. They switched seats again, Ayala back behind the wheel, Keys aiming his phone at the windshield, looking for their next target. At 6:04 a.m., they spotted a man in a red shirt pedaling his bicycle in the bike lane. He had no idea they were behind him, and in the next 5 seconds, his family's entire world would be destroyed.
They really don't care if anyone else lives or dies. They don't care about themselves if they live or die. And that can just be shown through their own actions.
Who do you think failed here leading up to this?
A multitude of different people failed, but I think ultimately the parents on all ends, they're the ones who failed.
6:04 a.m. North Tenaya Way near West Centennial Parkway. Andreas Probst pedaled his bicycle in the bike lane, completely unaware of what was approaching from behind. Inside the stolen Hyundai, Ayala gripped the steering wheel, recording. They could see the cyclist ahead, an easy target. Ayala spoke first. "Ready?" Keys laughed and responded. Yeah. Hit his eye. Ayala pressed the accelerator. The car surged forward. He honked the horn once, then aimed directly at Andreas Probst's back. The impact was devastating. The front of the car slammed into the rear wheel of the bicycle. Andreas flew backwards over the hood. His body twisted through the air. He crashed onto the pavement with brutal force. His helmet flew one direction, his phone flew another. His bicycle lay mangled in the street, and inside the car, screaming, laughing. One of them shouted, "Knocked out!" They didn't stop. They didn't call for help. They accelerated away, leaving Andreas Probst bleeding and dying on the side of the road, alone. The video captured every second. The acceleration, the impact, the celebration. They had just killed a man, and to them, it was entertainment. 10 minutes later, the car was found abandoned with a screwdriver jammed in the steering column. But police had no witnesses, no suspects, no leads. For weeks, this case went cold until someone at a local high school saw something on Instagram that changed everything. August 31st, 2023, police pulled up to a home in northwest Las Vegas. Jesus Ayala was inside. He was only 17 years old, and he lived just 5 houses away from Andreas Probst. The man he had killed was practically his neighbor. When officers brought him in for questioning, Ayala showed no fear, no guilt, no remorse. He looked at the detective and said, "I'll be out in 30 days. The officer responded, "You might be out of juvie in 30 days and move to an adult jail because that's how bad it is." Ayala shrugged it off. "It's just a hit and run, slap on the wrist." He genuinely believed he would walk free. He had no idea the video had already gone viral. He had no idea millions of people had watched him commit murder. Days later, Jzamir was arrested. He was only 16 years old, the one who filmed everything, and the one who yelled "hit his A" before the impact, the one who posted it online like a trophy. As detectives dug deeper, the full picture emerged. This wasn't just one crime, it was a spree. 4 stolen cars in one morning, a 72-year-old cyclist left bleeding in the street, a driver whose car they deliberately rammed, and finally, Andreas Probst, their ultimate target. Both teenagers were charged as adults.
Both teens indicted by a grand jury, charged as adults, facing murder with use of a deadly weapon.
Not guilty. Not guilty.
The teens appearing in court last Wednesday pleading not guilty to the charges.
I feel like this case is coming dangerously close to being a case that the DA is trying in the media.
Murder, attempted murder, battery, grand larceny, the list kept growing. But when these two appeared in court for the first time, they didn't hang their heads in shame. They didn't cry. They didn't apologize. Instead, they smiled at the cameras, laughed at the proceedings.
They're the teens accused of intentionally mowing down a retired man out for a bike ride, recording the killing and laughing as they sped away. Now there's an uproar over their behavior in court yesterday. 18-year-old Jesus Ayala and 16-year-old Jzamir were seen laughing during a hearing in Las Vegas. A reporter says he saw one defendant actually flip off the slain man's wife and daughter as they sat in the courtroom. They're charged with murder in the death of 64-year-old Andreas Probst, a former police chief from California who was enjoying his retirement in Vegas. In his memory, his widow wore his Apple Watch to court. You can see it's still shattered from the day he was run over. The Apple Watch automatically notified police.
The owner of this Apple Watch has taken a hard call and is not responding to their watch.
New video is emerging from that terrible day. The suspects can also be seen allegedly driving into a 72-year-old bike rider who survived and called 911.
He ran me over on purpose. I was watching in my rearview mirror on my bicycle.
Okay.
He could have killed me.
Also just released audio of Jesus Ayala in the backseat of a police car right after his arrest. His cocky attitude is
And threw obscene gestures directly at the Probst family. The judge had to stop the hearing. She warned both defendants to control their behavior, but they didn't care. To them, this was still a game. The charges were read out loud. Murder, attempted murder for the 72-year-old cyclist, he failing to stop at the scene of a crash. Battery with a deadly weapon. Residential burglary. Grand larceny of a vehicle. Possession of a stolen vehicle. Both were certified to stand trial as adults. But Nevada law created a problem. District Attorney Steve Wolfson explained it clearly. Because both defendants were under 18 when they committed the crimes, they could not receive the death penalty. They could not receive life without parole, no matter how brutal the murder was, no matter how many victims they attacked. The law protected them. Then Ayala's lawyers dropped a bombshell. They claimed he was not mentally competent to stand trial. The case was delayed for months, and the Probst family in Nevada was forced to wait even longer for justice. The delays dragged on for over a year. Competency hearings, motions to suppress evidence, legal battles behind closed doors. The Probst family attended every single hearing, waiting, hoping, praying for closure. Then in October 2024, everything changed. Jesus Ayala stood before Judge Jacqueline Bluth. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He pleaded guilty to battery with a deadly weapon. 1 week later, Jzamir did the same. No trial, no jury, just an admission of guilt. December 16, 2024. Sentencing day. The courtroom was silent as the Probst family stood to speak. Crystal Probst, the widow, went first. Her voice trembled, but she didn't break. My world was destroyed. Not damaged, not shaken. Destroyed. Every single day since Andy was murdered, boys, I wake up feeling like I'm asked to live a life I no longer recognize. They didn't just kill Andy. They filmed his murder and released it to the world. Michael Probst, the son, spoke next. I can't help but think we wouldn't be in this situation if the defendants had one parent like my father. The moment I learned of his death, all I could do was scream and yell. It felt like my heart was torn into pieces. Taylor Probst, the daughter, delivered the final blow. He'll never walk his little girl down the aisle. He'll never hold his first grandchildren. That was stolen from us. The judge turned to Ayala and Keys. She asked if they wanted to say anything. Both declined. No apology, no explanation, nothing. Then Judge Bluth delivered her verdict, and her words echoed through the courtroom like a hammer. Judge Jacqueline Bluth looked at both defendants. Her voice was firm. Her words were sharp. This was so much more than a joyride. It just kept going and escalating. More people kept getting hurt. There is no excuse for what you two have done. She turned to Jesus Ayala first. You are sentenced to 20 years to life in the Nevada State Prison, plus an additional 2 to 10 years for battery with a deadly weapon. Ayala showed no reaction. Then she turned to Jzamir Keys. You are sentenced to 18 years to life. Keys stared straight ahead. No tears, no remorse, nothing. District Attorney Steve Wolfson spoke to the press afterward. Ian, and this sentencing reflects the seriousness of this crime and the value of human life. Jesus Ayala and Jzamir Keys made a conscious decision that resulted in the death of an innocent man. My office remained committed to ensuring they were held fully accountable. He confirmed these were the maximum sentences allowed under Nevada law. But there was a catch. Because both killers committed their crimes as juveniles, Nevada's Assembly Bill 267 applied. Both would be eligible for parole after serving just 20 years. Jesus Ayala could walk free by his early 40s. Jzamir Keys could be out even sooner. The Probst family would have to relive this nightmare. Every parole hearing, every appeal, for the rest of their lives. Andreas Probst gave 35 years of his life to protecting others. He wore the badge with honor. He retired to enjoy peace with his family. And he was murdered by 2 teenagers who thought it was funny. They filmed it. They laughed. They posted it online. They smiled in court, and they never once apologized. Evil doesn't always look like evil. Sometimes it lives 5 houses away. Sometimes it smiles at the camera. Sometimes it gets released in 20 years. So I have to ask you, should Jesus Ayala and Jzamir Keys ever be released? Does someone who films a murder for entertainment deserve a second chance? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if this story moved you, share it. Let the world know what happened to Andreas Probst. Let his legacy be remembered. If you want to see justice for more victims like Andreas, who in another case is on your screen right now, click it. I'll see you there.